Hey everyone, Dr. Frunkey here with a brand new knife consult for you. This is a knife that I have been waiting for a while to review because it's so popular. Nick Shabazz called this knife his Knife of the Year 2016. This is the Olamic Tactical Wayfarer 24/7 or 247, what have you. My buddy Kevin Cleary also did a video. My buddy Nico has a couple of these, and everyone raves about this knife. So I was really happy to get it in hand, and I wanted to share with you my thoughts on this. So let's go ahead and show you. It comes in this nice case, as all Olamics do. It's got a certificate of authenticity. It shows it's a 3.5-inch LMAX blade, PVD stonewash with a titanium handle, clip, and hardware. This is number 188, and it was built back in 2016. So let's go ahead and get this knife broken down by the numbers here. So up front, as the card said, there is a 3.5-inch blade of LMAX steel. It's 4 inches back to the pivot. It's 8 inches on the dot overall. The handle is right at about 4.6 inches, and the grip area is right just a hair under 4 inches for the overall grip area. In terms of the handle thickness, we can break out the calipers and see here we're right at 0.5 inches on the handle thickness, and the blade stock is coming in at 0.136, about 136 thousandths. So not the thickest blade stock. That's nice. It's in keeping with the theme that this is a knife that you can carry 24/7, an everyday carry kind of a knife. So let's bust out a couple of other knives. For a comparison here, here's a Spyderco Paramilitary 2. Here is a Spyderco Mannix 2. Some reasonable choices there. A couple of other knives that are good EDC sizes. Here's a Zero Tolerance 0808 and a Zero Tolerance 0450. So very common EDC size knives right there. So you can see it's a nice size. It's a little bit bigger than these 3.25-inch blades. And just a little bit smaller than something like the Paramilitary 2. So it's a really nice size if you ask me. But I think that there are some shortcomings with regards to the overall ergonomics, and we'll talk about that. So up front is this nice blade done in LMAX steel. I'm personally a big fan of LMAX. In my experience, it holds an edge really nicely. Chemically, it's a really, really nice steel, up there on par with things like M390 chemically. For what the steel should be able to do. Very corrosion resistant, very fine grain structure, very nice edge holding properties and things. So I think there was some scare about LMAX a couple of years ago, specifically as it pertained to some zero tolerance blades, but if you get it from a good manufacturer, it's one of the greatest steels in the world, so it's nice. It also relates to this steel in the sense that this knife is built in Italy, and so it's using a more European steel. LMAX is an Udenholm steel, so that's a nice little touch right there. The blade is done in this two-tone finish on this particular model with the PVD finish on the blade. PVD is not so bad. I actually have it on one of my favorite knives of all time. The PVD finish on this Zero Tolerance 0392 has held up through the years. I've carried this thing maybe more than any other knife in my collection, and it hasn't even scratched off almost at all. And especially with this stonewashed finish, you're going to have a hard time getting it off. It's very similar in terms of DLC to its toughness, so I do like that. This has a nice satin finish on the flats. It's got the Olamic logo right there. This one is sporting an aftermarket edge. I'm not exactly sure who did it, but this is not the way that the edge comes from the factory. That is nicely done too. The blade has a nice thumb ramp right here with some jimping on it. It does provide some traction. You can get your finger up a little bit farther. There's a bit of an interesting piece of the blade right here. I want you to notice how there's a little bit of a hump right here. This bothered me right at first. But I realize now that it's actually a good area to put the thumb so that you can push down on it. It still looks a bit awkward. It's not really necessary to have that little lump right there, but that is part of the design. So there is a hole in the blade right here. This is one of my biggest gripes with the knife, actually, is that thing is more or less non-functional. I cannot, for the life of me, open this knife with a spider flick, and I cannot open it with, I can just barely open it with my thumb by pushing really, really hard, and that's not even easily reproducible. So it's a bit strange for me to see a hole on a knife like that that remains more or less non-functional. I don't know if it's this particular knife and that the detent is super strong on this, but it is certainly not usable for anything other than just lightening the blade. I wonder what your thoughts are on that one. Moving back, we've got this proprietary pivot screw. While they do include the tool to take it apart, that's a small annoyance. I will say I did disassemble this knife, and it did come apart rather easily, but if you look very closely, I hit my camera there, you'll see that there are some defects in the coating. I did not do that. This knife came to me like that. I was very cautious when I took this apart, but you will see that maybe even when they were assembling the knife at the factory that they put some marks on it. And so that's a bit of an annoyance that it's a proprietary pivot screw, but on the inside are some stainless steel ball bearings, so the action is actually quite smooth on opening. Something that a little bit bothers me too is that when you're closing the knife, the detent ball is so big. They built a ramp, so there is a detent ball ramp on the blade, but it still gets pretty badly hung up on it, and it means that it's not a super smooth action on closing. I was expecting this to be a little bit better, but it's a little bit kind of not so smooth. And this is after cleaning the knife and oiling it up and making it perfect up to my standards, so I'm a little bit surprised by that. The deployment is nice. With the strong detent, you can really fire that blade out quickly, and it's very comfortable to do that with that pocket pecker of a flipper tab right there, which is quite prominent. I'll show you the overall dimensions right here. You're looking at, let's see here. Let's look at this. This is, oh, why is this doing it in that measurement? There we go. You're looking at almost 1.5 inches of overall length in that dimension. So that's a bit odd, and that might get in your way. And so that again surprised me. These two things by themselves, the proprietary pivot and the big flipper tab, should mean Nick Shabazz should hate this thing, but he called this his knife of the year, and I'm not really sure why. I do like the detail that it is a hole in the flipper tab. I think that that's pretty cool. That maybe matches the blade right there. I'm not really sure why that hole in the blade is right there. Somebody tell me why. Moving back to the handles, there's some nice pieces of titanium here. Again, dark PVD coated with the stone wash. These things are nicely made. You can see the attention to detail that went into the milling and the chamfer. The lanyard hole is incorporated in the back here. There's a nice area for your forward finger, and then a nice area for your fingers to rest back here. Now, I wear a size 8 sterile glove. That's about a large to an extra large glove size. So the ergonomics on this handle are not quite perfect for me. And what I'll show you is that my 3 fingers fit here. My 4th finger, my pinky, will wrap around the end of the knife there. And while that does allow for a very comfortable and strong grip, there are no hot spots. It just feels a little bit small in my hand. One thing I do love, notice how the blade is angulated downward in my hand. I actually really love that. That is an extremely functional and well thought out ergonomic choice. It allows you to really get a good, powerful angle when you're doing push cuts and things like that. On the opposite end of the spectrum was the Jake Hoback Quieback that angled almost up in this direction when I was holding it. So this is really a nice user angulation on that blade, and I do like that. The pocket clip is well done. It's a little bit shallow right there, so it will probably stop going all the way down. So you will have some prominence sticking out of the pocket. It worked fine on my scrubs, but it wasn't perfect in jeans, although it did go in and out of the pocket quite easily. That ball bearing, that beg style ball bearing right there is quite smooth. And there's a nice touch here with the floating back spacer, also done in titanium. I actually really like that. So how does this thing carry? It carries really well. I mentioned the clip and its sort of shortcomings right here. It comes in right at 5 ounces, so it's that nice sort of solid weight where it's not overly heavy to carry, and I do like that. In my hand, the ergonomics are not quite perfect. It's a little bit small in my hand. I might prefer a full-size Wayfarer, which may be happening sometime over the next year with Olamic. The action is a little bit rougher than I was hoping for, and so overall, this knife is well made, but it's certainly not the knife of the year in my honest opinion. Perhaps there's some variation from one to the next. It's a great slicer. It's a nice size for everyday carry, but I think that, it's not quite the knife that I was expecting it to be, and that's a bit disappointing. Let me know what you guys think of this knife down below. Click like and subscribe to my YouTube channel here. Follow me on Instagram at Dr. Frunkey, and take care.